Hey, it's Chrissy Miles. You're watching The Chrissy Miles Show, where I teach you how to take eternal truth and produce extreme results. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you how to get through a crisis. Unfortunately, if you live long enough, you'll probably go through some sort of crisis. The question is, will you allow that crisis to knock you out, or will you come out unscathed and without a lot of baggage? Over the past 20 years, I've worked with hundreds of people who were in total crisis, and I faced a fair amount of crisis myself. Unfortunately, people usually wait far too long to get help and to apply some of the principles that I share with you on my show. And while crisis can be extremely challenging to face, I can say that it is possible to come out of a crisis and find healing, restoration, and wholeness. So let me say, first of all, I'm not a professional, I'm not a licensed counselor or a therapist, and any advice I'm offering you is really just considered guidance. So please seek professional help if you're experiencing anything that is life-threatening. But today I want to show you the steps I've used to get through a crisis. So subscribe to this channel, click the bell to get notified of more of my proven methods to get more out of life. Here's step one. Evaluate the crisis level you're in. There are varying degrees of crisis, and if you're in danger or in any kind of life-threatening situation, you really need to seek emergency help or immediate professional treatment. But sometimes crisis also happens when we discover something about our spouse that we never knew was happening. Maybe there's alcoholism, substance abuse, maybe your spouse is having an affair or they're addicted to other things. Maybe you're just in financial turmoil. You're maxed out on your credit cards, you're overdrawn in your bank account, creditors are calling you every day to collect payment on things. And sometimes we even face a health crisis. The pains that you've been feeling turn out to be something more significant and life-threatening. Whatever the case, we all face some sort of serious situations that bring us really into crisis moments in our lives. So here's a question for you. Have you ever faced or are you currently facing a crisis? Comment below if you faced a crisis and come through it and what you did to overcome. Or if you're currently in a crisis, what's in relation to? How can we help you? So here's step two. Control your first response and determine your outcome from the beginning. I faced a number of crises in my life, and I can tell you that my initial response is what carved out a really clear path to get through it. Now, most people respond to crisis either in anger or rage or fear. You're angry if someone that you love hurt you, or you're afraid when you feel like you might lose everything. But what if you responded to crisis differently? What if when crisis came into your life, you decided to respond with faith instead of fear? The Apostle Paul was a man who was totally familiar with crisis. He said this, he said, I've worked much harder, I've been in prison more frequently, I've been flogged more severely, I've been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a day and a night on the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from Jews, in danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the country, danger at sea, and danger from false believers. And he said, I've labored and toiled and often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst, have gone without food. I've been cold, naked, and besides everything else, I face the daily pressures of all of my concern for the churches. But then he goes on to add, even though he was hard pressed on every side, he didn't feel crushed. Even though he was perplexed, he didn't feel in despair. And even though he was persecuted, he never felt abandoned. He felt struck down, but not destroyed. You see, you've got to look at your source of strength and determine that you're not going to let crisis define your life. Here's step 3. You really have to reach out to your community. So what do I mean by that? Reaching out to your community assumes, of course, that you have a community to belong to. So if you don't have a community, you really need to find one first. But if you do have a community, you need to let them know right away what's going on so that you can get the emotional support you need during this crisis. Now, you've probably done this if you were experiencing a health-related crisis because there's usually not a lot of judgment involved in getting sick. But in areas where you or your partner's bad choices have contributed to the crisis that you're in, you're going to be less likely to express that you really need help. So you've got to swallow your pride. You've got to ask people for help. So who do you have in your life that you could call on in a moment's notice without the fear of judgment and get support in a crisis? This is what you have to do in step 3. Here's step 4. Listen for a strategy to change. So let me say that there are going to be a lot of things that you can do when you're in a crisis. Everybody's going to have an opinion for you. And it's not to say that you shouldn't listen to them for wisdom, but you could give them a lot of details about what's going on, but it's still not going to give them the full picture. They're not in your life every day. So you're going to need a divine solution. So you have to listen for a strategy, because in moments of severe crisis, God is able to give you a strategy to help you come out on top. Now, most people want to make a drastic change to overhaul everything about their lives. For example, if you find out that your spouse has been cheating on you, you want to immediately file for divorce. Or if you're tired of your wife overspending, you cut up her credit cards in anger, you open up an account with your own name on it. Or maybe you're just emotionally worn down because you're the primary caregiver to your kids and you respond to them in anger when they misbehave. So it's common in a crisis to respond with this knee-jerk reaction, but what you need is a divine plan to get out of the mess you're in. So if you've been in a crisis and you've never really been able to hear from God, or you're currently in a crisis and you need a divine plan, I want to invite you to click the link in the description box to a free podcast called Following the Voice of God. And I'm going to teach you how to hear from God and follow His voice to lead you out of crisis. Here's step 5. Add daily disciplines into your life to prevent crisis from building up. Now, the last step to overcoming crisis is really to try to prevent crisis from getting into your life in the first place. So check out my videos on how to recover from a bad day and how to get through stressful seasons in life. I've got the links right here in the description box. A lot of the crisis we face can be avoided by putting some daily disciplines into your life to prevent challenging events from turning into a crisis. So emotionally, you might need to practice hearing from God and choosing the outcomes that you want in life. Financially, you may need to work with your family to understand how to budget your money and control your spending. Or maybe for your health, you might need to change some of your eating habits and start an exercise routine. In any case, establishing a better daily discipline won't eliminate crisis, but it will greatly reduce the challenging moments that you face in life. I hope you enjoyed these tips on how to overcome a crisis. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you know somebody who's been going through a crisis, share this video with them. Get these life-changing resources into their hands. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to this channel with new episodes each Tuesday, where I teach you how to get more out of life.